Welcome back. Shifting our focus now to the other big development, the visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin. And what are the big three takeaways or three big signals? India reasserted its role as a peace power. Russia called for a new multipolar world, and both nations closed ranks against terrorism. But even as Delhi and Moscow spoke in one strategic voice, politics erupted over invitations for state banquet dinner, on the optics, the symbolism, and even the Prime Minister's Gita gift. Before we break down the controversy, before we tell you what the Prime Minister said and the President as well, let me also quickly introduce our guests. We have Mr. Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat, on the broadcast, along with Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, defense analyst, and Abhijit continues to be with us on the broadcast. Apologies to Mr. Dayal and General Saab for keeping you waiting. I'll come back to you. Let's quickly listen into what the Prime Minister said, also what the Russian President had to say.
आज हमने क्षेत्रीय और वैश्विक मुद्दों पर भी चर्चा की। यूक्रेन के संबंध में भारत ने शुरुआत से शांति का पक्ष रखा है। हम इस विषय के शांतिपूर्ण और स्थायी समाधान के लिए किए जा रहे सभी प्रयासों का स्वागत करते हैं। भारत सदैव अपना योगदान देने के लिए तैयार रहा है और आगे भी रहेगा।
Together with our like-minded countries in BRICS and SCO and from among other countries of the global majority, we are promoting the processes of forming of a more just and democratic multipolar world order. We are defending the main principles of the international law enshrined in the Charter of the UN. Among them, the right of any country for its own way of development and the preservation of their cultural civilizational identity, respect for sovereignty, careful balance of interests of all participants of the world community.
Let me first go across to Mr. Dayal. Mr. Dayal, this morning, a speaker from America said, Europe is looking at this meeting with its own interest. The West wants India to talk about Ukraine, but ultimately it's between India and Russia to strengthen diplomatic relations, economic cooperation, trade ties, and all of that. But India has always taken a stand. And today the Prime Minister emphasized, the Prime Minister said, India is not neutral. India has decided to side with peace. What does that say about the relationship between both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President, for the Prime Minister to raise the issue of Ukraine and to once again advocate peace?
Well, thanks for having me on your show. The Prime Minister and President Putin, during their interactions, displayed a great deal of warmth and understanding. The sort of relationship that they have is certainly one that endears people-to-people interaction. Now, the Prime Minister was very forthright in telling Mr. Putin that India is on the side of peace. In other words, signaling that Russia should take steps to work out peace arrangements with Ukraine, because the war is dragging on and it's inflicting great costs, not only on these two sides, Russia and Ukraine, but also on the rest of the world. There is a dislocation of supply chains. There is a huge impact on the global economy. So it's in the interest of everybody. And I do recall the Prime Minister telling Mr. Putin earlier that in India's view, it is not an era of war. So we have always been on the side of peace, and the Prime Minister was very forthright in telling President Putin the same thing again. Now, let me also mention that there was a lot of pressure on India, particularly from the United States, to cut off oil supplies from Russia, not to purchase oil, and to sort of have a lower key interaction. Nonetheless, the Prime Minister, during his interaction, showed that India has a very special relationship, a privileged partnership, that India believes in strategic autonomy. So the messages went out loud and clear to the United States and Western Europe that our policy towards Russia and our relationship with Russia stands on a different footing.
I want to ask Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, what was the significance of the Prime Minister talking about the Pahalgam attack?
Well, thank you very much for getting me on this show. Pahalgam attack was referred to in the context of terrorism, and it was very clearly stated by both the heads of state in their meeting, in the public address which they did in the afternoon, where they said terrorism is an enemy of the human mankind, and therefore we both condemn it in any form, anywhere in the world. And the Prime Minister gave the example of Pahalgam and an example of what happened in some place in Russia. So both the leaders have unequivocally said this clearly, that terrorism is an enemy of humankind, people, and it must be curbed, and both clapped on it and both agreed with it. I would like to clear this whole visit. It's about more or less coming to an end now, at a macro level and at the takeaway levels between India and Russia. I feel that this particular visit, which started not only yesterday, but started some days ago when there was an interview of the president of Russia with another news channel, which was widely broadcast. And in there, a large number of issues were clarified for the world population by the president Putin. And that clearly said what he's going to do about Ukraine war, and what everybody feels, and European nations feel as well, that the Indian Prime Minister can swing this in some way or the other. This got further re-emphasized here in Rajghat this morning, when President Putin wrote a remark in the visitors book and saying we want to follow the teachings of Gandhi, and he referred to peace. So which is also a message to the world that he is looking at peace in Ukraine. Now coming down to India, the biggest issue is Russia is a very old-time friend of India, starting from 1955. And many prime ministers, many governments have gone through, each one have only cemented this relationship, and it has become today as one of the perhaps most intimate relationships between two nations in the world.
Absolutely.
The two leaders are so close to each other, they can talk anything. What must have transpired in the car we don't know. But I'm quite sure some of the very, very difficult issues must have been discussed between the two leaders in a private mode, which will never come in the public. And that would really be as to how this thorn in the international relationship between Russia, between America, between India and China needs to be handled. So there was a reference to China, if you recall. There was reference to America, and in American reference, President Putin stated very clearly that there is an embargo.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. But I'm being told that there's some development happening in Pune. Before I go across to that, quickly want to get in Abhijit's word on this. It's a time-tested relationship. They are our biggest arms supplier, still account for 32% of India's total oil imports. Why does this camaraderie, this relationship, this engagement become so important in a changing dynamics?
Look, the main thing about Russia is we need a balance against China. Our foreign policy has always been that we can never allow Russia and China to come together. Come hell or high water, we have to play a divide and rule between them. They have to be kept apart. And we will do whatever is required to keep Russia in our good books to, always have that, ensure what was the Sino-Soviet split, now to be the sort of Sino-Russian split, as you would have it. Now, it's very curious what Ambassador Saab said about peace, because, you can interpret this gesture both going to Gandhi's Samadhi and giving the Gita as a peace, because the Gita isn't a book about peace, you see. It's about a justification for a brother to kill another brother over a piece of property, which is what is happening in Ukraine, which is essentially a property dispute between two Slavic brothers, which is, of course, how Putin himself describes it. So, this is something we can spin anyway. To the Americans, we can tell them, oh, we told him all about peace and we want love and brotherhood and all of that. And Putin's probably going to read it and go, bro, this fellow's actually telling me, yeah, good, go for it, bro. Just so long as you have all the bases covered kind of thing. So good. Remember, Gandhi himself had said, given a choice between cowardice and violence, I will choose violence any day, every day. He wasn't about violence as a substitute, non-violence as a substitute for cowardice. So I think there are I think President Putin has taken back a whole set of messages, and the West has been given a different set of messages, even though we haven't said anything contradictory.
Absolutely. Well, stay on with us, gentlemen. There's a lot of politics happening as well, and we have to now get in the voices. Major political controversy is brewing over the No Rahul Putin meet, and sources tell us that senior Congress leader Shashi Tharoor has been invited for the presidential banquet, but Congress sources claim both Rahul Gandhi and Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge have been snubbed. In fact, they say Congress President and leader of opposition were not invited.
Joining us right now is the Congress Party's local MP, Mr. Shashi Tharoor. Sir, just one question I would like to ask, sir. Have you got the invite from the Rashtrapati Bhavan for today's dinner, sir?
Yes, I have got the invitation and I certainly should be going. Thank you very much.
Sir, because the LOPs have not been invited.
I'm surprised about that. I didn't know about that. But I've been invited, I assume, in my capacity as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. A foreign visitor is here, so I'm going for that.
So as the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, he says, in that capacity I've been invited and I'll go. But Niyamika, the Congress chief and leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi, who earlier said the government does not want a meeting between the LOP and Mr. Putin, they've not been invited for the banquet, we're being told.
Well, yes, indeed. This is information which we are getting from the sources that both the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha as well as in Rajya Sabha, Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge and Rahul Gandhi, are not being invited for today's dinner. However, this is really an interesting point which has come for the Congress party. As Shashi Tharoor being the chairman of the External Affairs Committee, he has got an invitation for today's dinner. And he has also accepted that invitation as he will be participating in this dinner tonight. As yesterday only we have seen that how the Congress party has made this allegation that it is because of the insecurity of this government that they haven't invited or scheduled any engagement with Vladimir Putin meeting the opposition leaders. But it is now upon Shashi Tharoor that he's going to be participating in this particular dinner. So how it goes in the upcoming days, that will be really interesting.
More importantly, how does the Congress party react to that will be interesting to track. Niyamika, thank you very much for getting us the detail. I'm also thanking Abhijit, Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad and Mr. Prabhu Dayal for joining us on the broadcast with their perspective.